Back in Seoul, I found myself retreating to a comfortable cocoon of nostalgia, hiding away within the familiar rhythm of my beloved city. I had missed the vibrancy of Seoul, the simmering pace, the mix of languages, and most importantly, the spirited local cocktail scene. Eager to immerse myself again, I started working at my first bartending job. I had stepped into this world, known for its relentless hustle and bustle, with cautious optimism. But soon I learned that it was more than that. This was a place teeming with life and passion, a beehive of activity where every worker, every bartender, was contributing to the harmony of the hive. Standing behind the counter, I discovered it was like walking onto a stage. Every night, the spotlight would be on me, my stage cloaked in a warm glow of neon lights and the frenzied chatter of bar patrons providing the music to this production. The hustle was a part of the act, a sense of urgency that only heightened the experience. From simpler requests like beer to intricate orders for cocktails with foreign names, the Countertop soon became my platform, my podium of influence. I was no longer just a girl serving drinks. I was now a maestro, conducting an orchestra of flavors, aromas, and spirits, expertly adding, stirring, shaking, blending, and serving cocktails that commanded appreciation. Seeing the smiles on my customers' faces as they had the first sip from their drinks, their eyes widening in a pleasant surprise, their lips parting into a contented smirk, it was all the applause I needed. Their satisfaction was my curtain call, their empty glasses my standing ovations. Simultaneously, I was still the student. Unknown to the crowd, each night at the bar was a lesson, each customer a teacher, and each experience a chapter, adding to my book of life. I absorbed it all, keeping my senses open and my mind eager. The subtle aroma of whiskey, the way some guests cringed at the bitterness, the pure joy upon tasting the perfectly balanced Bloody Mary, everything was paint for my canvas. Through the continuous swigs of knowledge, I explored the matrix of mixology and embarked on an exciting journey down the spirited lane of bartending. My life had taken a bewitching turn, my days and nights blending seamlessly into a cocktail of emotions, artistry, and passion. The ingredients of my life, my past, my dreams, my aspirations, were now being mixed, with each stir, each shake, each pour revealing an unwritten story. As the flame of my daily challenges caramelized my experiences into sweet wisdom, I noticed a distinctive flavor of courage surfacing, fueling my spirit with an unfamiliar yet refreshing confidence. It was exhilarating, to say the least. In this world that danced to its own beat, I had found my rhythm, my place. The vibrancy of Seoul, the thrill of the bar, they embraced me with open arms, and it was here, under the neon glow and amidst the clink of glasses, that I felt alive, truly alive. And as I crafted more and more cocktails, poured drink after drink, I realized with surety and pride that yes, this was my calling. The countertop was my canvas, the bar was my stage, and mixology was my performance. Every good story needs a dash of romance, and it was during a busy dinner shift that Joon entered mine. A regular at the bar, Joon had the look of a seasoned patron, his casual demeanor reflecting an ease with the vibrant energy that constantly buzzed around the bar. He was nothing short of charming, complimenting me not only on the cocktails I served, but also the flair with which I mixed and served them. Unlike others, he didn't just appreciate the taste, but also the art of bartending. We connected instantly over our shared love for cocktails. The countless conversations about spirits, the impromptu mocktail experiments, the shared laughter over botched recipes, what began as friendly banter soon evoked deeper feelings. Like two diverse spirits blending seamlessly into a cocktail, we found ourselves irresistibly drawn towards each other, oblivious to the bustling life of the bar around us. A sense of camaraderie formed from these shared moments. My evenings brimmed with a heightened joy whenever Joon walked in. The bar seemed more lively, the neon lights more exhilarating, and the air tinged with a sense of classic romance. Despite often being stuck behind the counter, mixing drinks, I always found time to steal fleeting conversations with him. The countertop was no longer just a place where beers met ice and cocktails met shakers. It became a rendezvous point for Joon and me, amidst the hustle of the speakeasy. Ironically, the romance that began over cocktails started influencing my work. With every sip Joon took, with every subtle hint of joy or dismay that crossed his face, I found myself getting more deeply entwined into the world of mixology, and understanding the unspoken rhythm that guided cocktail concoctions. My spirits didn't just blend in the shaker, they also danced around Joon, creating an intoxicating mix that was hard to resist. Each interaction with Joon was like adding a spark of creativity to the cocktail of my life. Every smile of his became a story, every conversation an inspiration. I found myself instinctively mixing cocktails that mirrored our blossoming relationship, an enticing mix of distinct spirits, lighthearted banter, and a bond that went beyond the bar and its denizens. The mix of our individual dreams, ambitions, joy, and sorrows were reflected in each cocktail I created, making the experience as intoxicating as the drinks themselves. The excitement and romanticism of it all felt as though I'd shaken up a martini and was caught in the effervescent froth. Every night was a whirlwind, even as the concoctions flowed, and the city drowned in the vibrancy of its own nightlife. The day I created my first signature cocktail was one I will never forget. I remember the bar was bustling with activity, music thrumming, peals of laughter intermittently breaking through the rhythmic clink of glasses. It was one of those nights when everything seemed to be in sync with the pulsating energy of the city, a night almost tailored for inspiration. A midnight hush had fallen over the city, but we, the night dwellers, were just getting started. On an intuitive whim, I decided to experiment and create a cocktail on the spot, a personalized signature, an embodiment of my journey so far. The inspiration of this cocktail came from the fusion of cultural experiences I've learned, complemented with my understanding of unique tastes, blending my Eastern upbringing with my Western training. Curiosity brewed in the eyes of my colleagues and regulars, their gaze fixed on the cocktail I was about to unfold. I remember reaching for the bourbon. Its bold, fiery attributes reminded me of my own relentless spirit. A splash of the quintessential Korean soju reflecting my deep-seated roots, a pinch of the French vermouth reflecting my culinary journey in Paris, a splash of grenadine reflecting the sweet and occasionally sour episodes of my personal life. With every ingredient I added, it felt as if I was infusing a part of my story, like an autobiographical novella poured into a cocktail glass. As I shook the cocktail, I noticed my hands were steady yet filled with anticipatory tremors, a cocktail of excitement and nervousness. The clinking of the ice against the shaker seemed to harmonize with my pounding heartbeat, forming a melody that only I could hear. The final garnish, a twist of orange zest, added just the right touch of freshness, mirroring how every new day was a fresh start in my life, a chance to mix new experiences and opportunities. Serving the cocktail, I felt an unusual sense of accomplishment, for the glass held not just a blend of spirits, but a piece of my journey. Watching the patrons take their first sip, apprehension and excitement budding, and then the eventual nod of approval. It was surreal. It was in that moment, under the cocktail bar's dim lighting, amidst familiar faces and friendly chatter, I realized I found my muse, in the very heart of Seoul's exuberant nightlife, and behind the bar counter. This new concoction was a tangible testament of my growth as a bartender. My first signature drink, a blend of spirits and stories, mirroring my life so far. With every sip the patrons took, and with every nod they gave, I could almost see the bond between us deepening. Something magical happened that night. I wasn't just another bartender serving drinks. I was Evelyn, a bartender with a story, serving a piece of my life in a cocktail glass. This signature cocktail wasn't just a testament to my mixology skills. It was a part of me, a piece of my journey, poured into a glass, which I shared with the world one sip at a time. As summer faded to autumn, our regular patrons at the bar organized an after-hours party to celebrate my birthday. The bar, now closed to the public, buzzed with a familiar vibrancy, echoing with the laughter and camaraderie of close-knit bartenders. I was touched by the surprise. Words couldn't encapsulate the warmth that filled the space. While everyone else was draped in celebration mode, I found myself immersed in my own world of reflections. Birthdays were always a poignant reminder of time, of how far I'd come and all the rocky roads I'd traversed. But instead of slipping into nostalgia, I decided to celebrate the ways that my life had enriched me, making me the woman I am today. As the night wore on, my friends and I, fueled by the spirit of the occasion, decided to host a friendly mixology competition. In my turn, I decided to concoct a cocktail that reflected not only my bartending skills, but the toast of life I was savoring that night. The bar was now our stage, and mixing was a dance of the hands. I rummaged through each spirit and ingredient, stopping to appreciate their essence, their hidden stories that resembled fragments of my own journey. Choosing Korean soju as the base spirit was an obvious choice. It was a tribute to my adopted home, Seoul, a city that embraced me when I needed it the most. To that, I added a French vermouth, a dash of my Parisian days at Le Cordon Bleu. The vermouth was a silent nod to everything I had learned and accomplished in France. Each time the vermouth poured into the glass, filling the room with its rich aroma, I found myself reliving the memorable days in Paris's cobblestone streets. The final touch was a personal one, a hint of freshly squeezed grapefruit juice. Tangy and invigorating with a distinctive zing, it reflected my personality, quirky and bursting with flavor, much like the unexpected turns and roads I took in my journey as a bartender. With each swirl of the cocktail shaker, I was weaving a part of my story, blending my experiences, my joys, my hardships into each drop of the cocktail. Serving the cocktail, I felt incredibly alive. As my friends tasted my creation, their appreciative smiles, the nods of approval, and the sounds of clinking glasses filled up the night, etching a treasured memory in my heart. My cocktail was applauded and savored by all, but to me, it was more than just a cocktail. Embodied in each sip was the story of my countless trials and triumphs, my bold decisions, my unfaltering optimism, and my unabated love for mixology. My birthday was not just a celebration of another year in my life, but also a celebration of my journey, my growth, and my unyielding passion for bartending. It marked another meaningful chapter of life, reminding me of the rocky road behind and the promising path ahead. Last evening at the bar, brewing beneath the usual bustle, a storm had been silently gathering. Joon and I found ourselves entangled in a fierce whirlwind of words, our arguments resonating in the otherwise jovial bar. We stood firm, our expressions mirroring our fortified stances and our conflicting life goals pushing us towards a strenuous standoff. The disagreement had blindfolded us from the harmonious symphony of the bar, the clinking glasses, the casual banter, the hearty laughter. Everything faded into a smoky haze. We were on a lone island of tumult amidst a sea of pulsating energy, our discordant chords striking dissonance on an otherwise harmonious evening. Fights were not unusual in our relationship, but this time it was different. The air was tense, and the looming silence post the heated exchange hung over us like a shroud, portending the end of something beautiful. I knew in that moment that the rift had dug deep, broadening chasms in our relationship that seemed beyond mending. Occasionally, I stole glances at Joon across the bar and was met with an unfamiliar coldness. A stranger occupied the space where the man I loved used to be. His face, usually lit up with a charming smile, now wore a mask of grim despair. I felt a pang of regret, but also understood that life was directing us to different pages, and perhaps it was best to embrace the change rather than resist. In the quiet discomfort of that evening, precipitated by rough, lashing words that echoed the piercing reality, I understood that some goodbyes were inevitable. Itching to bury myself in the comfort of the familiar, I found solace behind the bar counter, the clinking bottles chiming a lullaby to my grief. I meandered through the routine of mixing drinks, pouring each ounce of emotion into the crafting of spirits, sublimating my impending heartbreak into a concoction of volatile flavors. The shift ended, but the shadows of that evening hovered over me. Embroiled in the chaos of my thoughts and the heavy silence of Joon's departure, I warily locked away another chapter of my life. Life unfolded itself in a cyclical pattern, and as one part of my life was concluding, another was sparking to life awaiting my embrace. Little did I know, the looming discomfort would soon metamorphose into emancipation, ushering me into a path of newfound strength and resilience. The start of life beyond Joon had only just begun, and I was ready to embrace what lay ahead. The dust of our heated argument began to settle. The bar was filled with the usual chatter and laughter, echoing against the walls and reverberating into my heart. I poured myself into my craft, grounding myself amongst the clinking glasses and hiss of pouring spirits. Each cocktail I crafted represented a fragment of my emotions shaken and stirred, presenting a mirage of colors and flavors. I would bury the sorrow in a sazerac, swirl the regret into a whiskey sour, and hid the despair beneath the froth of a perfect pisco sour. a symphony of emotions disguised as a cocktail menu. The bar counter felt like my refuge, a cove where the high tides of my feelings could retreat and compose. Engrossed in my work, I was distracted from the residual remnants of Joon's presence. The bitter ending was overshadowed by the elixir of satisfying work, and my driving passion for bartending served as my steady anchor in the turbulent sea of my emotions. Every cocktail I served, every smile I forced, every banter I partook in felt like stitching up an invisible wound, painful but necessary for healing. I found myself humming to the rhythm of the bar, a melody to soothe the turmoil in my heart and lull the unease. The notes danced in the air, blending with the soft lull of ongoing chatter, bottling the day's chaos into a rhythmic harmony. The days that followed blurred into a montage of patching up and moving on. Solo shifts became bearable and the chatter more tolerable. The silence that I once associated with distress now felt like a comforting solitude. The faint light at the end of the tunnel began to shine brighter. The process was as uneasy and complex as blending varied spirits into a harmonious cocktail. Just as I had learned to master the art of mixology, I discovered that overcoming, healing, and growing were similar. They required patience, time, and the right blend of self-care and distraction. This was only the beginning of life after Joon. This was the new normal. A life where the rhythm of solo shifts played my favorite tune and the hum of the bar, my healing comfort. Life unfolded, the way layers of complex flavors melt in a well-crafted cocktail. Navigating from the kitchen and counters of the bar, I found lost pieces of myself in every cocktail that I mixed. It became clear to me, each shake, each stir, each poured spirit was a step towards carving a new identity, a step towards being Evelyn, without Joon. The solace I found in bartending was fascinating. The rhythmic noise of the counter delivered a sense of tranquility, making the past seem more remote. With every new day at the bar, I was buoyed by an overwhelming surge to reinvent myself. I wanted to stand out and be recognized for being more than just Evelyn, the girl who used to date Joon. Determined, I channeled my emotional turmoil into creating an innovative cocktail. I wanted it to symbolize my journey, reflecting the bittersweet symphony of my life. Just like a botanical gin blended with bitters and sweetened with a trickle of syrup, my life too evolved from sweet to bitter, and now, delightfully, to bittersweet. Eschewing the traditional norms, I dared to experiment with unusual combinations. I refused to be tied down by recipes and instead followed my instincts. This was a liberating process. The result translated into exquisitely balanced flavors that resonated with my patrons. Emotionally and professionally, this was a transformative period. The bar counter wasn't just a place to mix drinks anymore, but an altar of self-discovery. Every patron, every cocktail, each night was a memory carved not in bitterness, but in a strength acquired through struggle, flavored with newfound hope. Each shift brought a sense of accomplishment. The recognition from patrons, their appreciation for my unique cocktail creations was heartening. Their growing fondness for my mixes revived my self-esteem and fueled my aspirations to be remembered as a skilled mixologist. The bitterness of my past slowly mixed into the sweetness of my reimagined present, much like the perfect mix in my signature cocktail. This wasn't a mere job, it was a path to self-discovery, an escape from heartbreak, a journey back to myself. I was Evelyn, the bartender, the mixologist, the woman coming to terms with her story and brewing herself a new one.